Okay, let's get into it. It is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026.
Right?
And if you have been anywhere near a screen or a sports bar or, the internet in the last few days, you know exactly what time it is.
The dust is settling.
The dust is settling, the confetti's been swept up. We are on the other side of the 2026 NBA All-Star Weekend.
And, usually the Wednesday after All-Star Weekend is a bit of a hangover. It's quiet.
Yeah, totally.
It's usually just people complaining about the dunk contest or something. But this year feels, I don't know, it feels distinct.
It felt consequential, didn't it?
Yeah, there's a weight to what we just watched.
And look, for most people, All-Star Weekend is just a spectacle. It's the dunks, it's celebrities sitting courtside wearing sunglasses indoors.
And absolutely zero defense.
Zero defense for 48 minutes. But that is not why we're here. We're here to do what we do, a deep dive. We're going to ignore the highlights and look at the actual documentation.
We are looking at the source code of the league, really.
Mm-hmm.
We have the official historical list of NBA All-Stars. The complete registry, updated as of, this week.
And it is a fascinating document. I opened this file expecting just like a list of names, maybe some dates.
Right.
But what you're actually looking at is a timeline of how the sport has evolved, going all the way back to the very first game in 1951.
It's a living document.
It is. But before we get into the history, I want to start with a number that you pointed out, a number that actually made me stop and do the math twice because I didn't believe it.
The 466.
466.
Yeah. And it sounds like a decent number of people until you actually zoom out.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, think about the entire history of the NBA.
Right.
The thousands upon thousands of players who've been drafted, who've signed 10-day contracts, the guys who started for a year or two.
Journeyman, G League call-ups, all of them.
Out of that entire ocean of humanity that has played professional basketball, only 466 men have ever been selected to an all-star roster.
That is the statistic that defines this whole deep dive for me today, because we throw that term all-star around so loosely. We say, oh, he's playing at an all-star level.
That was an all-star performance. Yeah.
But the actual club, the registry, it's the 1% of the 1%.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to realize there are guys who play 10, 12 years in this league, solid starters, household names in their cities.
Guys with $100 million contracts.
Exactly. Who never, ever crack this list. Not one time.
Yeah.
You can be a very good player for an entire decade and never be one of the 466.
So our mission today is to figure out why. We want to understand the mechanism behind this list. We want to find the anomalies, the guys who maybe shouldn't be there but are, and the legends who missed out.
And we have to talk about the massive structural shift we just saw in 2026.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you were watching this weekend, you realized pretty quickly that the NBA has just completely reinvented the wheel.
It wasn't just, a format tweak. It felt like a historic pivot. I think in 20 years, we're going to look back at the 2026 All-Star Game as the moment the league officially acknowledged a new era.
The world format.
The world format.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. To understand why 2026 is so important, I feel like we have to understand what it replaced, what we lost. Because for the longest time, the All-Star Game was a very, very simple concept.
It was geography. Pure and simple. It was tribal.
Right. I grew up in the 90s. It was the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference, and that meant something.
That was the traditional era, and it ran for decades. It was the absolute bedrock of the event.
Why did it work so well for so long?
Because the league was structured that way. You played your conference rivals 4 times a year. If you were a Knicks fan, you genuinely hated the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, yeah.
If you were a Lakers fan, you despised the Spurs or the Kings. So when the All-Star Game happened, you were forcing these rivals to become teammates for one night to beat the other side.
It had a very Civil War kind of vibe to it. Like, I hate you, but for tonight, I hate them more.
Exactly. But looking at the source material, you can see where the cracks started to form. Why did they abandon that?
So what happened?
The talent imbalance. If you track the selections year over year and you look at, say, the mid-2000s to the 2010s, you just see these waves where the Western Conference became an absolute juggernaut.
It became lopsided.
Completely. You had years where the 10th best player in the West was objectively better than the 3rd or 4th best player in the East.
So you were leaving legitimate superstars at home in the West while the East was kind of scraping the barrel to fill out a roster.
Exactly. And frankly, it got a little stale.
Yeah.
The tribalism died down as players started moving teams more often. Free agency changed the whole vibe, so the league started tinkering.
And this is where it gets interesting, right? Specifically between 2018 and 2023.
Captain's era.
I remember this so vividly. It felt like they were trying to turn the All-Star game into a pickup game at the local gym.
That is the perfect way to describe it. The format, which is all detailed in the notes here, was that the top vote getter from each conference was named a captain.
Oh, okay.
And then they televised a draft where those two captains picked their teams from the whole pool of All-Stars, regardless of conference.
Which, I have to admit, gave us some great television moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Watching Kevin Durant try not to pick James Harden or LeBron making jokes while drafting his friends, it was fun. But did it actually fix the game?
The data suggests mixed results. It added personality, for sure, but it completely removed the structural stakes. There was no East Pride or West Pride anymore.
It was just Team LeBron versus Team Giannis.
Exactly. It was fun, but it felt ephemeral. It was an exhibition in the truest sense of the word. It felt like nobody really cared who won. They just wanted to see who got picked last.
Yeah, it had a real Pro Bowl vibe to it.
Precisely. And the league could sense that apathy setting in. So looking at the timeline, we hit 2025 just last year. And the source describes this as a transitional tournament.
2025 was weird.
Weird is a very polite word for it. It was the throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
What was the format again? I feel like I blocked it out.
They tried a 4-team tournament. You had 3 teams of actual all-stars, but then, and this is the part that still baffles me, they added a 4th team composed of the rising stars.
Wait. Refresh my memory. This was rookies and sophomores.
Rookies, sophomores, and even some G League standouts. So
Okay.
you technically had a format where an NBA All-Star team, the 24 best players on Earth, could lose to a group of guys who weren't even fully established in the league yet.
That sounds like a fever dream. Imagine if the Rising Stars had actually won.
It would have completely delegitimized the whole All-Star concept.
Total chaos.
It's a very strange experiment. But it brings us to the present day, the New World Order of 2026. The source explicitly describes this year's game as a tournament, but the team composition is the real headline.
2 U.S. All-Star teams versus 1 World All-Star team.
There it is.
Let's pause on that. 2 U.S. teams, 1 World team. That distinction is doing a lot of heavy lifting, isn't it?
It's doing all the lifting.
It implies that the international talent is so concentrated, so dominant, that they can field a single squad that rivals the combined might of the entire United States.
And it's an acknowledgement of reality. When we get to the roster breakdown later, you'll see why. The top of that world roster, Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Wemby, these aren't just participants.
Yeah.
They're the MVPs. They're the faces of the league. Grouping them by East and West was just diluting their impact. By putting them all on one team, the league essentially created a dream team of international talent.
And it creates a narrative that Team LeBron never could. It's national pride. It's the Ryder Cup of basketball.
And it forces the U.S. players to care, because nobody wants to be on the American team that gets blown out by the world team on American soil. It taps into a completely different kind of competitiveness.
Okay, so that's the stage. We've moved from geography to a playground draft to this new global showdown. But I want to peel back the curtain a little bit more. We see the names on the list, the 466. But how does the sausage actually get made?
The voting ecosystem.
Right, because I think a lot of fans, they assume it's just a popularity contest. They think, oh, whoever has the most Instagram followers gets to start the game. Is that true?
It's a piece of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. The league realized a long time ago that if you leave it 100% to the fans, you get some, let's say, eccentric results.
Right. You get role players starting because an entire country decided to vote for them for a month.
The Zaza Pachulia effect, exactly.
Yeah.
Or the Yao Ming rookie year effect, where he started over a prime Shaq because of the massive vote from China.
So to maintain the integrity of this lift so that when we look back in 50 years, it actually reflects the best players, they put in a weighted system for the starters.
Correct.
Walk me through the math on that. How do I become a starter?
Okay, so for the 5 starters from each squad, the fan vote accounts for 50%. That's the popularity baseline that gets you in the conversation.
Yeah.
But the other 50% is split evenly. 25% goes to the media and 25% goes to the current players.
I have always found the player vote to be the most fascinating part of this whole process.
Why do you think that is?
Because the players know. You can fool the fans with a highlight reel. You can maybe even charm the media with a couple of good interviews. But you cannot fool the guy who has to guard you on a Tuesday night in Milwaukee.
That's a great point.
If the players don't respect your game, they are not going to vote for you. Period.
It serves as a fantastic check and balance. We've seen it happen where a player is #1 in the fan vote by a mile, but the players rank him 5th or 6th.
And that drops him out of the starting lineup.
Exactly. It keeps the list meritocratic.
Yeah.
It essentially prevents memes from becoming all-star starters.
Okay, so that gets us the 10 starters. But an all-star team is 12 guys deep. Who picks the bench? The reserves.
The reserves are a completely different animal. This is where the democracy ends and the technocracy begins. The reserves are chosen by the 30 head coaches in the league.
And I'm assuming there are some guardrails there. A coach can't just vote for his own point guard to help him hit a contract incentive, right?
It's explicitly forbidden.
Yeah.
Coaches cannot vote for their own players. They have to vote for the opposition.
And how does that work? Do they just pick 7 guys they like?
It's structured. They select 2 guards, 3 front court players, and then 2 wild cards who can be from any position.
And they're not just writing names on a napkin, right? It's not a total free-for-all.
No, and this is a crucial detail that often gets overlooked. There's a pool. A panel of media experts compiles a ballot of roughly 120 players, 60 from each conference. If you aren't in that pool, the coaches can't select you.
So there's a vetting process before the vetting process even starts.
Correct. But even with all these systems, the weighted percentages, the coaches' ballots, the pools, there is one variable that chaos introduces every single year. And looking at the 2026 data, this variable played a huge role.
You're talking about injuries?
The replacement variable. Because here's the thing about the record books. The list tracks selections. It doesn't necessarily track participation.
Right. Because if I get voted in as a starter, but I pull my hamstring the week before the game, I'm still an all-star in the history books.
You absolutely are. But your spot on the court is empty. So the NBA commissioner steps in, and he has the unilateral power to name a replacement for that injured player.
That is a lot of power for one person. He basically gets to decide someone's legacy with a phone call.
It is. And when you look at the 2026 list specifically, you see a lot of asterisks, a lot of little notes in the margin saying replacement selection.
And we should clarify for the listener, does a replacement selection count less? When we look at that 466 number, is there a separate list for real all-stars and replacement all-stars?
Not at all. A selection is a selection. Whether you were the leading vote getter in the entire world or the last guy called by the commissioner on Friday morning because someone rolled an ankle, it counts exactly the same on your resume.
It's the foot in the door theory. Just get in the room.
Exactly. And as we'll see later, some of the biggest names in the game today started their all-star careers as replacements.
Okay, so we have the stage, this new world tournament. We have the mechanism, this complex mix of fans, players, coaches, and the commissioner. But now we have to talk about the players themselves.
Right.
And if we're talking about this list, there's one name that just it dominates the data so thoroughly it almost looks like a typo.
The king.
We have to talk about LeBron James because looking at this 2026 entry for him, I mean, are we sure this is real?
I double-checked the source 3 times. It's real.
Okay, give me the rundown. Where does he stand as of February 2026?
He stands alone. He holds the record for practically every longevity metric the league tracks. First, let's start with total selections. He now has 22.
22.
22.
Let's just contextualize that. That is more than 2 decades of being one of the best players in the world.
Think about it this way. There are players in the league right now, rookies, who were barely born when LeBron made his 10th All-Star game.
That's insane.
He has been an All-Star for the entire lives of some of his current teammates. It's absurd.
It feels like he's a geological era of the NBA, not a player.
Second stat, consecutive selections, also 22. He has never missed a year since his first selection way back in 2005.
That's the one that gets me, the consistency. Most guys, even the absolute legends, they have a down year. They get hurt, they get old, and they miss a year. LeBron just doesn't.
He just doesn't. And the third record, which might be the most impressive from a physical standpoint, most games played. He has now appeared in 20 All-Star games.
Wait, hold on. Catch me up on the math there. 22 selections, but only 20 games played.
Right. So the source notes that he missed the 2025 game just last year, and one other one prior to that, likely for injury management or rest. But 20 games played is still the record by a comfortable margin.
So who's even in the rearview mirror at this point? Is anyone even close to these numbers?
The gap is just widening every year. For decades, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the gold standard. He finished with 19 selections.
Okay. So LeBron is +3 on Kareem.
He's +3 on Kareem. Then you have Kobe Bryant. Kobe finished with 18. And remember, Kobe had that incredible streak of 17 consecutive selections. We all thought that would never be touched.
Yeah.
LeBron blew past that 5 years ago.
It really puts him in a category all by himself.
It does. And then you drop down to what you could call the 15 club. This is where you find Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Shaquille O'Neal.
Titans of the sport, absolute legends.
No doubt. But there are 7 selections behind LeBron. That is an entire Hall of Fame career worth of difference between them.
You know, speaking of Tim Duncan, I saw a little note in the source material that felt so perfectly on brand for him.
The perfect attendance record.
Yes, break that one down for me.
So Tim Duncan, as we said, 15 selections. And the record shows he played in every single game he was selected for, with one major asterisk.
Let me guess. The lockout year.
The 1999 lockout year. The league canceled the All-Star game entirely due to the labor stoppage. No game was played. But if you exclude that 1 year, which was completely out of his control, Duncan never missed a game.
That is the most Tim Duncan stat I have ever heard in my life.
Right. He never sat out for rest. He never had a minor injury keep him home. If he was picked, he showed up and played. Just reliability personified.
He just punches the clock. Unbelievable. But going back to LeBron, there's one more dimension to this record that I think is the most startling.
Okay.
It's the age factor. The source tracks players who were selected after turning 40 years old.
Ooh, I imagine that's a very, very short list. Most guys are coaching or golfing by the time they hit 40.
It is a tiny club, 3 names.
Yeah.
In the entire history of the NBA.
Wow. Who are they?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dirk Nowitzki, and LeBron James. That is the entire list. And here's the kicker. Of those 3, only Kareem and LeBron have earned multiple selections after turning 40.
So Dirk was just one time.
One time. And it was largely a ceremonial nod in his final season. I believe it was a Commissioner's Special Edition, actually. But LeBron and Kareem, they were still out there producing. They were still essential pieces of the league's structure.
It forces us to just completely rethink what a player's prime is.
Right.
I used to say a player peaked at 28 and was done by 34. LeBron has stretched that timeline by a full decade.
He has absolutely normalized the extraordinary. But, and this is interesting, there's a flip side to this coin.
Okay, what's that?
If the old guys, LeBron, KD, Curry, are staying around forever, occupying these roster spots well into their late 30s and even early 40s, what's happening to the young guys?
That is a great question. We always hear the future is now. But if the kings aren't leaving the throne, can the princes actually get in the room?
Exactly.
I looked at the Ricky data in this source, and honestly, it is shocking.
Lay it on me.
We have this perception that the NBA is a young man's league, right? We see the draft hype, the highlight reels on social media. We assume rookies are just taking over.
Right. I feel like every year there's a rookie of the year who feels like they should be an all-star.
Feels like one? Maybe. But are they actually selected?
Yeah.
The history says a definitive no. In the entire history of the NBA, going all the way back to 1951, only 45 rookies have ever been named all-stars.
Okay, 45, that's, almost one a year on average. It doesn't sound too bad.
On average, yes, but you have to look at the breakdown. The source highlights the draft lottery era. So everything since 1985. Since 1985, the number of rookies selected has just fallen off a cliff.
How many? Since 85?
Only 8.
8 in 40 years.
It has become incredibly, incredibly rare. The 1985 game was the last time we saw 2 rookies in the same game, Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon. Since then, it's been a complete drought.
So who is the last one? Who was the last rookie to actually make the team?
You might want to sit down for this. The source lists Blake Griffin in 2011 as the most recent rookie to be named an all-star.
No, Blake Griffin. In 2011, that was 15 years ago.
Exactly. As of this 2026 list, we have gone a decade and a half without a true rookie all-star.
That is mind-blowing. I would have bet money that Luka or Wemby made it their rookie year. They were that good.
They were phenomenal. But Luka Doncic made it in 2020, his second year. Victor Wembanyama made it in 2025, his second year. They were close, they were generational talents, but they didn't crack the list as rookies.
And what about starting? Is that even rarer?
Oh, much rarer. The last rookie to actually start an all-star game was Yao Ming, way back in 2003.
Wow. So the rookie all-star is basically an endangered species at this point. Why do you think that is? Is it just that the veterans are too good and they're hogging the spots?
I think it's a combination of a few things. One, yes, the overall talent level of the league is so incredibly high that a 19-year-old, no matter how gifted, usually has holes in their game that a 28-year-old veteran has already patched up.
Right.
And two, the coaches who pick the reserves, they tend to be conservative. They value winning impact over raw potential. They'd rather reward the guy who's been grinding for 6 years on a good team than the shiny new toy on a bad team.
That makes a lot of sense. The veteran wall is very real. But on the other end of that spectrum, you have the guys who bloomed late. The late bloomers, I love these stories.
Me too.
Who had to wait the longest to finally get their name on this list?
The record holder is a great piece of NBA history. A guy named Nathaniel Sweetwater Clifton.
Sweetwater Clifton.
In 1957, he became the oldest player to make a debut selection. He was 34 years and 3 months old.
34. That's usually when guys are thinking about retiring.
Exactly. It speaks to an incredible level of perseverance. And in the modern era, it's just as rare. The only other players to make their debut at 34 or older are Sam Cassell in 2004 and Anthony Mason in 2001.
Sam Cassell, the absolute master of the mid-range game. I remember that season. He was incredible.
And Anthony Mason, the ultimate enforcer. These guys weren't the chosen ones at 19. They worked, they refined their game, and eventually the league just had to recognize them.
It's the aha moment. It reminds you that development isn't linear. You can have your best year at 34.
Precisely. The All-Star game isn't just for the phenoms. It also rewards survival and improvement.
Speaking of improvement, we need to talk about the group that has improved the most over the last decade. The group that basically forced the NBA to change its entire format in 2026.
The international contingent.
Let's talk about the class of 2026 and the world takeover.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. We mentioned earlier that 2026 introduced this world team tournament format. And when you look at the names provided in the source, you realize this wasn't a marketing decision. It was a competitive necessity.
The talent at the top of that world roster is just staggering. These aren't just all-stars. These are the best players in the world, period.
Look at the list. You start with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
The Greek freak.
He's up to 10 selections now, from 2017 straight through to 2026. He's been a staple for a decade. He's essentially the LeBron of the world team in terms of his consistency.
Then you have Nikola Jokic.
The Joker. 8 selections consecutively from 2019 to 2026. His consistency is just robotic. He makes being a top 5 player look so easy.
And Luka Doncic?
6 selections. He started in 2020 and has been an absolute lock ever since.
Then what about the younger wave coming up behind them?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's already up to 4 selections from 2023 to 2026. And of course, the alien himself, Victor Wembanyama.
Wemby.
He already has 2 selections, 2025 and 2026. He is just getting started. It's terrifying.
That is a starting 5, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, Shai, Wemby, that could beat any team in history, arguably. If you put that 5 against the 1992 Dream Team, it's a game.
It is a terrifying lineup. And the source even notes some interesting nuances about nationalities over the years, like Kyrie Irving, born in Australia, but he plays for Team USA, or the history of guys like Steve Nash, born in South Africa but raised in Canada, or Luol Deng. But in 2026, the sheer density of top-tier talent designated as world is what forced this format change.
It's not a gimmick anymore. It is a necessity for a competitive balance. But I want to look at the fresh blood. The source lists the 2026 class specifically. Who are the guys who got their very first taste this year?
There's a really interesting crop of first-timers in 2026, and it shows that perfect mix of young phenomenons and guys who finally figured it out.
Okay, hit me with the list.
First up, you have Chet Holmgren.
Chet, finally.
1 selection, 2026. He's been battling Wemby for that spotlight, and he absolutely earned his spot.
He feels like he's been on the verge for a couple of years. Good for him.
Then Jalen Duren.
The big man, love his game.
1 selection, 2026. He brings that physical, old-school dominance. It's nice to see a traditional big man getting some love.
Who else?
Jalen Johnson. 1 selection, 2026. His versatility has been incredible to watch this season. And the MDR.
Denia. That's a great breakout story.
1 selection, 2026. Another big feather in the cap for international development.
And you mentioned there was a veteran who finally broke through.
Norman Powell.
That's my favorite one on this list.
1 selection, 2026. A classic grinded-out career. He's been a scorer off the bench, a starter, a trade piece. He's done it all. And finally, in 2026, he's an all-star.
It gives hope to every single role player out there. Just keep getting buckets.
And there is one more name that is crucial to the 2026 narrative. Alperen Şengün.
Ah, the Turkish wizard.
The source notes he has 2 selections now, 2025 and 2026. But for the 2026 game, he was actually a replacement selection.
Oh, interesting. Who did he replace?
He replaced Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Ah, and that leads us perfectly into the what-ifs. Because we look at this list and we see all the names, but the list also tells us who didn't play.
This is where the record book gets a little bittersweet. We often remember the game itself, the dunks, the MVP, but
Yeah.
the official list meticulously records who was selected but couldn't participate because of an injury.
And 2026 was a rough year for that.
It was a brutal year for the top-tier guards and forwards. We just mentioned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander missed the 2026 game, but look at this. Giannis Antetokounmpo also
yeah.
missed the 2026 game.
No Giannis in the first ever World Tournament. That's a huge
A
blow.
huge blow. He's listed as a selection, but the note says missed 2026 game. And perhaps the biggest name missing from the court, Stephen Curry.
Steph missed it too.
12 selections total for his career, but the
Yeah.
note clearly says missed 2023 and 2026 games.
Wow. That is a lot of star power in street clothes. It really changes the entire dynamic of the weekend when the faces of the league are on the sideline in suits.
It absolutely does. And it raises that important question about the replacement variable we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
When Stafford Giannis has to sit, someone else gets that all-star designation added to their resume forever.
It's the sliding doors moments of the NBA. One man's twisted ankle is another man's contract bonus.
Historically, it's massive. Think about Michael Jordan.
The Joe.
14 selections. But he missed the 1986 game because of that broken foot early in his career. That's a game played he never got back.
And we mentioned the 1999 lockout.
Right, the only year with no game. So you have guys from that era like Karl Malone or Gary Payton, whose selections count is one higher than their games played count purely because of labor negotiations.
It's fascinating how politics and injuries carve out the history just as much as the jump shots do.
Absolutely. And you see it with the replacements, who then become stars in their own right. The source mentions Anthony Edwards.
Amen.
He was a replacement selection back in 2023. He got in through the back door. But by 2026, he's the MVP of the game.
Talk about seizing the opportunity. He went from just happy to be here to completely owning the building.
Exactly. De'Aaron Fox is another one. The source says he was a replacement in 2023 and a replacement again in 2026. These guys are right on that fringe, and they keep getting the call when spots open up. It counts just the same in the history books.
So we have covered the New World Order, the uncatchable LeBron, the vanishing rookies, and the injury asterisks. When you step back and look at this entire list of 466 names, what is the big takeaway for you from this 2026 snapshot?
For me, it is the undeniable passing of the torch. We spent 2 decades analyzing the LeBron era, and he's still here, which is a miracle in itself.
Right.
But when you look at the 2026 roster, Wemby, Chet, Shai, Luka, Jokic, and the format shift to world, it feels like we have officially and finally entered a global era. The list isn't just a record of American stars anymore. It's a global registry of basketball excellence.
It really does feel that way. The boundaries are gone. And hey, here's my final thought for you. We spent this whole time looking at the past. But looking at this 2026 list, seeing the sheer density of that world team, seeing how the rookies are getting blocked out by veterans, and seeing this new format,
Yes.
have we officially passed the torch? With the world team looking so dominant on paper, are we entering an era where the U.S. is now the underdog? The source notes over 320 players have multiple selections. But looking at the recent names, it feels like the momentum has completely shifted across the Atlantic.
That is a provocative thought. For 75 years, this game was an American export. But now, it feels like it's a global import. The world team might just be the favorite for the next decade.
It's a brave new world, literally. Hey, thank you for listening to this deep dive. Do yourself a favor, go pull up this list, Wikipedia, NBA.com, wherever. Scan through those 466 names. There are so many stories in there we didn't even get to touch.
It really is history written in names and numbers.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.